April 1945, the final days of the Nazi Empire. Despite desperate measures taken by the defenders, combined Allied forces closed in on the last pockets of German resistance. The end of the war in Europe was near. As the Allies advanced into Germany, they discovered treasures plundered from the Nazis' former conquests, carefully hidden away in caves and vaults. In the months following the German surrender, billions of dollars in riches were uncovered, including these gold bars found in an abandoned salt mine by U.S. soldiers. While the bulk of these stolen treasures was recovered, billions of dollars still remain unaccounted for. There was, of course, more shocking evidence of Nazi barbarism. Buchenwald, Mauthausen, Dachau, names that would come to symbolize man's inhumanity to man. And through the gates of Dachau, one multi-million-dollar Nazi treasure allegedly passed. Tonight we will investigate the story of this treasure as told to us by Dr. Edward Greger. He is convinced it was buried on the shores of a small Austrian lake in the spring of 1945, where it remains today. We have uncovered dramatic evidence that supports Dr. Greger's story, a story first told by an Austrian physician named Wilhelm Gross. After the war, Dr. Gross had treated imprisoned Nazi war criminals. An SS officer who had been condemned to death told Gross of the location of the buried treasure. In 1952, Dr. Gross shared the story with Edward Greger, who was then a U.S. Army officer stationed in Austria.
It started at the concentration camp of Dachau, gold and treasure that was accumulated from the prisoners that had brought in there who were executed and cremated.
The concentration camp of Dachau has been preserved as a memorial. This recreation was filmed there.
According to Dr. Gross, the commandant of Dachau and 3 assistants loaded the treasure into 4 boxes, which were probably ammunition boxes, according to the size.
These boxes were filled with jewelry, rare stamps, and gold bars, some of it processed from the gold fillings of concentration camp victims. Today, their contents would be worth at least $50 million. Dr. Gross's informant claimed to be one of 4 SS officers who conspired to smuggle this treasure out of Dachau. Their route allegedly took them from the outskirts of Munich into Austria, through the Arlberg Pass toward the small town of Bront. Near Bront was a pristine mountain lake called the Lunar See. This lake, located on the Swiss border, was their ultimate destination. Allied armies had not yet reached this isolated region, and the men believed their loot would be safe there. After burying the treasure, the men planned to escape across the Swiss border. After several days, the men finally arrived at the Lunar See. The only structure in the area was a small hut. Dr. Gross stated that the officers buried the treasure exactly halfway between this hut and a brook across the lake.
Beeilt euch, wir haben nicht den ganzen Tag Zeit. Und was hofft, dass wir keine Spuren hinterlassen.
They then said their farewells and went their separate ways, planning one day to return.
3 of them left and headed into Switzerland. The 4th person went back down into the valley to return to his family.
According to Dr. Gross, this 4th officer was captured, and while awaiting execution, revealed his secret. The officer's 3 companions were never seen again. Greger believed Dr. Gross's story and agreed to help search for the treasure. But before they could mount an expedition, Dr. Gross mysteriously disappeared. In 1956, a dam was constructed on the Lunar See and submerged the treasure's alleged location under 75 feet of water. 34 years passed. In the summer of 1990, enough water had been let out of the dam to return the lake to its original depth. This, coupled with a severe drought, had brought the water level to an all-time low.
Get your pick out of the way there, and I'll go in there and look. not getting any stronger as we're going down deeper.
Armed with information culled from Dr. Gross's personal papers, Edward Greger finally went to the Lunar Zay.
Well, it's already off the meter, though, so it's as strong as it can be.
I think it's something in the rocks.
Greger and an associate pinpointed the treasure's location by using coordinates from a map given him by Dr. Gross. But despite a thorough search, he was unable to find the treasure. Where is the Lunar Zay treasure? Had the other 3 Nazi officers dug it up? Edward Greger feels this is unlikely. By the time it would have been safe to return, the treasure would have been submerged. Or could Dr. Gross's story be just that, a story? Documents brought to light at a 1946 war crimes trial indicate that such a treasure did exist.
I had discovered some evidence in the archives, specifically an interrogation statement from a gentleman by the name of Joseph Gerlin.
Joseph Gerlin was tried, convicted, and executed for atrocities committed while he was a sub-commandant of Dachau. According to his testimony and the statements from 4 other sources, the head commandant of Dachau had been involved in a conspiracy to smuggle a treasure from inside the camp. This officer's name was Frederick Feiter.
One witness said that he saw Feiter having trucks loaded, being loaded with valuables out of the cash storage areas. According to some other testimony, Feiter was seen leaving the camp in those vehicles. Later on, he was also seen by other SS personnel heading towards the Swiss border. Also, Gerlin testified that other camp personnel had assisted in burying this treasure, and that approximately $5 million in gold rice marks was taken in valuables.
Joseph Gerlin went to his grave, never revealing any more about the treasure. Edward Greger believes that Gerlin was one of the 4 men who buried the Lunar Zay treasure, and perhaps he was Dr. Gross's mysterious informant. Today, if it exists, this multi-million-dollar treasure is underwater, but Edward Greger will return again when the water level has lowered. He believes that if found, the proceeds of the Lunar Zay treasure should be used to provide medical care for needy individuals, a fitting use for wealth stolen under such grim circumstances. Next, the story of a bold prison break and 2